we have here? This little boy's filled with fear.
What do you tell those parents out there who are scared for their kids not making money in this industry?
The animation industry on its own is a very competitive industry, but there's also a lot of jobs. And I think that's something that the parents who aren't as supportive need to kind of look at.
What would you say are the three most important characteristics that make up a good animator? Why did you choose the path of animation and not illustration? What, in your opinion, is Ringling looking for?
They want to see your capability of drawing from life.
What kind of courses did you take in high school? Is it competitive to get into Ringling? Did you apply anywhere else? If you had to recommend a few pieces of software just off the shelf, the instructors at Ringling, are they professionals who work in the industry? What would you say is the good number to practice? Tell us about the process involved.
Each type of film, whether it's a musical or not, has its difficulties. But from my experience working on an animated musical, it has a lot more challenges.
He's way too scared to play those keys.
Animation and illustration is actually one of the most lucrative careers.
I just want to be an animator. That's like been my goal my entire life. Ever since I saw Toy Story.
Welcome to Mad Artist Publishing. Today we are interviewing, more likely talking to, an animator and a filmmaker who worked on the film Stage Fright. He is a recent graduate from Ringling College of Art and Design. Well, without further ado, welcome Zachary Morawizec. Did I get that right? I got that right. I know I got that right.
Thank you for having me, and I guess we'll get started.
We're gonna start off very informally, asking you about the film, who worked on it, who created the music behind it, how all that worked, and then we're gonna circle back and figure out who is Zachary and why he got into animation. So tell us about Stage Fright.
Stage Fright is an animated musical film that my friend Lauren Jacobson and I created together. We created this film because we were huge fans of musical theater, animated musical films from Disney, and we wanted to bring that something different, something that we hadn't really seen in a lot of other short films, and especially other Ringling films that we have seen before.
Would you say it's more difficult to work in an animation that involves music or one that doesn't?
Each type of film, whether it's a musical or not, has its difficulties. But personally, from my experience working on an animated musical, it has a lot more challenges prevalent than a regular non-musical film, just because you have to worry about coming up with the sound, like the music, how the music's gonna kind of correlate with the visuals on screen, and how the story's going to come together. Also, lip sync is huge. That's a huge thing. You have to try to match lips with audio, and it's just, it's a big monster to handle.
Let's talk about how the music track came to be. Tell us about the process involved in creating the actual, the song. Did you guys do it? Did somebody compose it for you? Does it cost any extra to do it?
You know what you're gonna do. You'll make them hiss, you'll make them boo. You'll see that you don't stand a chance, and pretty soon you'll wet your pants.
We don't really have that in our curriculum at Ringling. Like, no one says, all right, we're gonna, because there's musical films and stuff, we're gonna teach you how to write songs and stuff. There's no class for that. It's not in the curriculum, so we had to do that on our own. My partner and I, we sat down for hours just writing down different iterations of lyrics, and then we had to pitch that to the faculty. And then we kept reworking the lyrics until we had the final version that we thought sounded good.
No one's in their underwear, no one's in the nude. There is just one fool out there, and that is you, my dude.
We're not really musically gifted ourselves, so we had to go out and find someone that would be able to do the music for us. And that's when we came across Kevin Temmer, who's actually an alumni from our school who did the first ever musical from Ringling. So who better to contact about a Ringling musical than the guy who started it? So
he's a day of so much pride. He's our brand new Mohai, and Atlanta will finally be my bride. He's our brand new Mohai.
We contacted Kevin, super cool guy. He was really helpful with the whole song process, and he actually put his own spin on some of the lyrics and gave us some fresh ideas of how it could sound, and he gave us a bunch of different iterations of the song, and it was was a fun experience.
It's a very, very catchy tune, right? You probably found a lot of people singing along with it, right? After they listened to it.
Yeah, I got a lot of people saying spooky wookie stage fright like into their faces.
Well, you know who I am. I'm the man who ruined your plan. I'm your spooky wookie stage fright.
So you said that you were inspired by a couple of Disney films. Can you mention some of those?
We were very inspired by movies like Princess and the Frog, Corpse Bride.
There was a beauty known for miles around. A mysterious stranger came into town.
Even Fantasia. The heaviest inspiration, I think, for the film was The Nightmare Before Christmas.
And you ain't going nowhere.
More specifically, the scene with Oogie Boogie. We really wanted to kind of go for that look and feel with our film in Stage Fright.
How much of your film was 2D versus 3D, and how did you mix them up? What software did you guys use?
Actually, none of it was 2D. It's all 3D.
So that's good because it saved you a whole lot of time in drawing then, right?
Yeah, totally. I'm actually not a fan of 2D animation. I mean, I love 2D animation, don't get me wrong, but it's something that I personally don't want to devote my time to just because you have to draw everything.
Right. But you have to do storyboards, right?
Right. I do actually like storyboarding, so that's kind of weird. Like, I don't like 2D animation, but I like storyboards.
Okay.
With storyboards, we actually have a whole class called pre-production where you create at least like 4 different stories that you pitch to the computer animation faculty. And kind of just, you end up picking one of those films, and then you have to spend your entire senior year building that film from the storyboard.
So that's the last year.
That's last year. You have one whole 2 semesters to finish your film.
Okay. So before we get into the actual process of how films are made at Ringling, I want to talk about you and how you got involved in animation. So tell me back when you were 10 years old, what did you want to be?
I just want to be an animator. That's like been my goal my entire life. Ever since I saw Toy Story, that's like what I wanted to do. And even in preschool, my mom, she told me that how my preschool teacher said, like, oh, your son is talented. He's gonna, he's special. So that kind of stuck with me for my entire life.
And you had the support of your family, I imagine, behind it, right?
Yeah.
What do you tell those parents out there who are scared for their kids not making money in this industry? Can you fill them in on some of the statistics or things that you know about the industry?
The animation industry on its own is a very competitive industry because there's a lot of people out there that are, striving to be in this industry, but there's also a lot of jobs. And I think that's something that the parents who aren't as supportive need to kind of look at. It's that there are a lot more jobs out there in animation than people realize, especially like when it comes to anything you see on TV, like from advertisements to animated films, or even for video games, that some people don't even realize. Like
concept art, right? Illustrators hired for concept art. Yeah.
Exactly. There's so many jobs out there for artists and animators, and I just think that's something that people need to be more open about, too.
Why did you choose the path of animation and not illustration?
The illustration was fun, but I wanted to see my characters come to life. When I was younger, I'd always play with my toys and kind of reenact scenes from movies and stuff. So I was like, that'd be really cool to get that into a movie and actually bring those stories to life.
And what kind of courses did you take in high school, or maybe they were offered to you specifically that would lead you to get more experience before you applied to Ringling or any other school?
Before I started looking into schools, I was taking classes in high school for figure drawing because I've heard from people that a lot of schools were looking for figure drawing, and that's a skill that a lot of animators especially had to know to draw the human body, because when it's time to create your own character, how the anatomy of your character is going to work for film. So that was what I was doing. I also went to a couple of pre-college classes every other summer, where I actually got some my first hands-on experience with animation, and that's kind of where I fell in love with the process of creating characters and bringing them to life.
What would you say are the 3 most important characteristics that make up a good animator?
Patience, persistence, and just to be creative and have fun with what you do.
Do you think people are born with imagination, or do you think that's something that's just, that could be shaped through time?
Everyone has the capability to imagine. You look at a little kid, they'll take like a stick and pretend it's like a sword. You know, they're fighting like space robots or something. The older we get, the more we kind of, you know, get away from that and feel like if we start to act more kid-like, like a kid at heart, that's really helpful with having a creative imagination.
I totally agree with what you just said. You know, the older people get, we're supposed to be more responsible, but who's to say that you can be a responsible adult while still having fun? And I think a lot of people forget that because they get so serious about, you know, getting the mortgage or whatnot, and then they forget that, you know, there's still room for fun and imagination. What do you think for you is the trickiest thing to draw? Hands, feet, mouths, you know?
Hands are definitely very difficult. I'll say I had a hard time drawing hands. Everyone I knew was just spending hours drawing hands to get them perfect, because there's so many different shapes and angles that you have so many different appendages. It's like,
isn't there like a trick though that you guys can do, or like on purpose, just so you wouldn't waste your time on the details?
something that I kind of learned was just to like draw as many hands as possible, like really quick. Don't even like try to get like them like perfect or detailed. Just the more drawings you have of something, you know, practice makes perfect. So it's like, especially when you're drawing stuff like that's foreshortened, so it's like coming at you in perspective like this, it looks really weird compared to like a hand that looks like this, which, you know, we're probably used to seeing every day. Right. Like if you're struggling with like different angles and stuff of a hand, I think just getting out like just a bunch of drawings, 10 to 20 drawings at least each day, just like trying to get that right, I think would make a great difference.
How many hours a day, let's say per week, do you actually draw? Just for fun, nothing to do with work?
I haven't been drawing as much as I
That's because you're good, okay? But for somebody who actually wants to get into this career in this industry, what would you say is the good number to practice?
I would say if you're applying to schools, art schools, you want to get as many drawings as you can, just because not every single drawing you're going to crank out is going to be perfect. And not, you know, it's like I see people, when I was applying to schools, I went to portfolio days, you know, and I saw people with hundreds and hundreds of drawings. Their portfolio looked better compared to mine, just because I only had like 20 drawings or something.
When I was applying, they said specifically don't bring more than X amount of drawings and examples.
I never really ran into that, but I can see why that would be a problem. You know, they look through so many portfolios, especially at like, it's like, it's going to be hard to look through. Just having more at your disposal to show, drawing a lot every day can really help boost your portfolio and chances of getting into these schools.
You got into Ringling, so I want to know what, in your opinion, is Ringling looking for? And why did you choose Ringling? And what other schools did you apply for?
I applied to Ringling because of all the work that was coming out of the school. I remember one day just looking for animated short films, and then I came across some really impressive films that I thought Disney or Pixar, DreamWorks, you know, those companies, I thought they created those films. But then I looked at the credits of those films, and I was like, wow, this is actually done at a school. Like some students did this. Maybe that's something I can do. So that's kind of what was the deciding factor of like, you know, wanting to go to Ringling. And my process for getting into Ringling, you know, I was, you know, like I said before, I was going to figure drawing classes. I had a sketchbook that I would like draw in like every day. I was just drawing from life. And that's kind of something that Ringling was looking at. They were like, they want to see your capability of drawing from life rather than photographs. They especially hate when people draw you know, celebrities and stuff, just because like there's so many drawings of those out there, and and it, you know, it's like, you know, draw something unique. That's, you know, draw your house, draw your friends, and so that's what I did. I did a lot of that, you know, figure drawing. And
what is the actual procedure? How do they have to write an essay? For example, I had to write an essay. They had a 4-tier. It was 10 points for this, 10 points for that, 10 points for this, and then 10 points for that. And then they added everything, and then they picked like 250 out of like thousands of applicants, right? So that's the process for Sheridan. So what's the process for Ringling, for example?
For Ringling, you need to submit your portfolio online with everything that you want to submit to the school. And you always want to pick your best pieces.
How many did you submit?
10 or 20 pieces.
And you had a website set up for this?
They have like a little portal that you can log into, create an account, and you can upload your artwork on there. Okay. And then you also need to like write like an essay. There's like a writing segment for where, like, you know, like who inspires you and like why you want to create art. That's like an artist statement.
It's the same questions I'm asking you.
Basically, so you have to submit that along with all your best pieces, and then you just wait to see if you got in or not.
Well, how long do you wait after you submit your stuff?
The application typically opens like in the fall time, and I think they close them towards Christmas. I didn't find out until like January because I applied late. I applied like almost Christmas Day, and I didn't hear back until January that I got into Ringling. And then if you have like a scholarship or something, they'll tell you, oh, you won this scholarship, and that's basically it. And then you just you let them know like if you're 100% gonna go to Ringling, so that they get all your paperwork sorted out, and that was basically the process.
Is it competitive to get into Ringling? Did you apply anywhere else?
It's competitive like every school that I try to apply to. I applied to RISD, SCAD, Pratt, MassArt, SVA.
Where is Ringling exactly for anybody who doesn't know? Located in US?
It's in Sarasota, Florida. It's down south.
And did you have to move, or do you also are from Florida?
I'm actually from Massachusetts originally, so I moved down there for school. I was only there for 4 years until I graduated. So it can be difficult for some people, which is, being away from home.
And they have a campus? Can you talk about student life a little bit?
There's student housing on campus for underclassmen all the way up to seniors. You can live there on campus all 4 years if you wanted to. There's a gym at the school. They have a cafeteria, and they have all the computer labs open for students for illustration, computer animation students. And they also have their new library they just opened up a few years ago that has a 24-hour computer lab space. So if you wanted to work on stuff until like 5 in the morning, if you don't want to sleep, you can do that.
Animators don't sleep though, not a lot. I remember I would be pulling all-nighters.
Yeah, no, same.
Especially till the very end, right? The last 2 weeks, it's just like constantly. We had a couch, people would just like sleep on the floor, on the couch.
That's how it is. People at Ringling, there's this whole week where you render your film, and they give you like a time slot, like 12-hour time slot, like 9 in the morning till 9 at night, or vice versa. And I had the night shift, so a lot of people are like 3 in the morning. We'd all just take a break and just like nap for a half hour.
So for anybody who wants to be animation, can you tell us what tools you used in your film and what, in your opinion, are currently the best tools for animation?
For my film, we used Autodesk Maya, which is an industry standard program. I'm sure you've heard of it.
That's what we did.
Everyone in animation is familiar with Maya. Some people actually use Cinema 4D, not in my major. In the industry, people do use that software. But for my film, we use Maya. We also use Nuke for compositing, ZBrush for sculpting our characters, Marvelous Designer for cloth simulation, XGen tool in Maya where we can create hair follicles. I even took upon myself to learn Houdini effects, which is a software that's not taught in computer animation, but that's how I was able to create the smoke in my film, was using Houdini effects.
So you don't work in conjunction with other classmates from other programs, or do you?
The curriculum at Ringling, we have to do everything by ourselves, so we can't really work with other people in other majors. However, if you wanted to have like a title sequence, for instance, you personally don't think you could do, but maybe your friend in motion design could do it. Because motion design, they do more graphics and advertisement like animation. So you can have them, which has happened in the past. Actually, I have a buddy of mine who graduated this year with me, who had one of our friends in motion design do his title sequence for his film, which was pretty cool. But for like the main effects and animation, everything that's in the film, that's what you're responsible for in the computer animation.
If you had to recommend a few pieces of software just off the shelf to young people out there before they actually get into any animation school, what would that be?
Opening and trying to use Autodesk Maya is definitely worth trying to learn that at least before you go to those schools.
Did you know any of this software before you went in?
I didn't, and I wish I did, just because I feel like I would be so much better off in school knowing more. Because I mean, they teach you everything at Ringling, but I feel like you'd have like a step up. I feel like you would be able to have more time to focus on like animation rather than trying to figure out different tools and plugins for Maya. I tried to open up Maya and immediately I closed it. Like, this is like before I went to school. I opened it up and I closed it because it just like had so many different buttons and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I thought it'd break something. So.
Definitely agree with Zachary here. I would spend so much time just learning the technicalities of the software, and then that would drive me crazy. And then I figured it out towards the end of the project, and then my project suffered, and the animation suffered, or the lip sync suffered, or the modeling suffered, because I spent all this time learning. Whereas the other people in the class, they knew it. I also want to mention that a lot of software that is used at these animation schools is available for free. So you can go and download ZBrush from Pixelogic, and same with Autodesk. They have like a student thing, I think.
They have the student version, which I currently have still.
I would say suggest go on lynda.com, get yourself a $50 package, and then just watch as many videos as you can. Next question that I have is about the instructors at Ringling. Are they professionals who work in the industry, or are they just full-time faculty?
A lot of the faculty at Ringling are full-time faculty, but they have a lot of industry experience. Like at Ringling, before we get into 3D animation, we actually have we have 2 semesters worth of 2D animation that we have to learn. And all the professors that teach 2D animation they all work for Disney at the Orlando studio where they closed down. So we have a lot of people from Disney that are teaching us, which I thought was really cool. And they know what's going on in the industry and can have, they can gauge our work and kind of get us to that level where we need to meet like industry standards. And also a lot of professors, like 3D animation instructors, they worked at DreamWorks, Pixar, Disney, Sony, like any like studio that you can think of. That's teachers have worked there, or they at least know people that work in that industry.
You can answer this question as honestly as you want to, right? But how helpful are these instructors? I know they're helpful, but I'm talking about after hours. If you run into something really, really troublesome, nobody can help you, and it's going to require the teacher to, after hours help you.
Extremely helpful. Like I remember I was up, like, I was pulling all-nighters sometimes, and I'd be up at like 3 or 5 in the morning. I send like my teachers an email, like, I'm almost late, like something broke, or like, I don't know, like what's going on with this. Is there, any way you can help me? And they were more than happy to help, like any hour of the day. I mean, sure, there's some times where like, they won't be available, but for the most part, they're there when you need their help after hours. Even during class, they're dedicated to helping.
Is it one teacher that's there teaching you modeling and one teaching you 2D animation for 4 years, or do they switch?
So it switches every semester. You can choose which teacher you want. If you like the teacher from like sophomore year, you can try to get them again for junior year or senior year. But starting out sophomore year, you just learn the basics of Maya, how to like model basic characters. And then it just kind of, it gets more advanced, when you become a junior and a senior. And all the teachers, pretty much, they know everything. They're generalists, so they know animation, they know lighting, modeling, compositing, you name it. And I actually had this one professor who I wish I could have taken for my junior and senior years, but he unfortunately could only teach sophomore classes. But I mean, I feel like he was more than capable of teaching, juniors and seniors. On
a scale of 1 to 10, how stressful was first year compared to last year?
First year was probably like a 3, and last year was probably a 12.
Is this because of the amount of work that you personally chose to, add for your film?
By case basis, like what kind of film you're doing.
Right.
Also, when you're working in a group, you actually have a longer film that you have to create. Versus being by yourself. If you are by yourself, you only need to do like a 1-minute film, which is a lot easier because there's less to animate. I think junior year for me was the hardest, just because that's when we're doing storyboards, like all the pre-production, because you have an animation class on top of the storyboard class. And animation, we have to do a lot of different like 15 to 30-second animated like tests that are like every 2 weeks something else is due. So it becomes really stressful at times. Then when senior year hits, yes, it's stressful because you have to like create your entire film in these 2 semesters, but it's also less stressful because you don't have like the stress of like having to create more and more stories and doing storyboards, which is very time consuming. Even though I like it, it took a lot of time away from animation.
Does Ringling have some sort of a job fair? How much help do they offer to graduate students in securing jobs?
We actually have a whole like department dedicated to that. It's called Career Services, and they bring in recruiters like every week. Every other week, they have someone come in from Pixar, Disney, DreamWorks, they give a presentation, and then you can submit your portfolio to them, and then if you're lucky enough, they'll give you an on-campus interview. After when you graduate, even you have that for life. So you can, right now, if I wanted to, I can call up career services at Ringling, and they can help me find a job somewhere.
Can you speak to the costs and the financials, or is that not something you're comfortable with?
I can.
Let's just say that you're in the US. What is the cost of attending the 4-year curriculum?
Well, if you live on campus, that's an additional charge, of course. So you have to pay for that, and if you want to pay for like the meal plan that they have at the cafeteria.
So what did it cost when you went to school then?
Probably around like $60,000 a year.
But is that everything?
That was everything, because I lived on campus. And it got a little cheaper towards the end just because I wasn't a fan of the food there, so I kind of got off the meal plan and started just cooking my own food, and it was cheaper. Definitely, if you're going to go to a school like that, you're going to try, you want to try to get as many scholarships as you can and loans to help you out with that.
And do they have a lot of scholarships available?
They have a lot of scholarships available. They give it to you right when you get accepted to the school, and they also have donors that will donate, scholarships to students. They have a big event every year called the Avant-Garde, which is where they bring a bunch of these donors, and they get the most donations that day for all this,
So where is Zachary going now that he's a grad? When did you graduate, by the way?
I graduated in May of this year.
Were you stressed about getting a job? Did it come easy? I don't know if you're working or not.
Ringling, their statistics, it's like 85 to 90% of the students in computer animation that, that's just like a rough number, I don't know, but like most students get jobs within the first 6 months of graduation. And that's not just computer animation. Every other major on campus has around the same kind of like job placement rate. For me, it was personally, for me, it was a little difficult to find a job at first, but now I am employed, and I just started working last month. So, that kind of follows the statistic.
That's good. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually working at a studio right now in Los Angeles. So that's where I wanted to be, and it worked out.
Very nice.
In this industry, there's a lot of like contract to contract work. So, there's a high potential that you'll be moving from like job to job. But then, the more experience you get, the more studios you work for, the more that you'll start to like be at different studios like indefinitely. Especially when you're in Los Angeles, it definitely helps. I've learned that once you're here, there's a lot more opportunities because you're in the area. So if the studio wants you to be there like next day, you're in the area. So, it's the place to be is here in California for these kinds of jobs. There's jobs everywhere in the world. It's just that there's a huge pool of these jobs in this industry out here in California.
I also wanted to add that animation and illustration is actually one of the most lucrative careers. Whether it's video games, movies, like you said, commercials, or anything else, there's plenty of jobs out there. So if anybody out there wants to be an animator or wants to, use their imagination to make money and they're talented, don't listen to people who have never done it. We're going to be finishing up and wrapping up. So I want to thank Zachary for talking about his experience at Ringling. And I want to thank Ringling for consistently pumping out awesome grads who consistently produce awesome animation. And I got to say, some of the stuff, like you mentioned earlier, does look on par with Pixar and DreamWorks.
I was just going to add to that. It's like Ringling's goal to make these films. It's not you are creating a student film, but their goal is to make your film not look or feel like a student film. They want it to look and feel like a professional film. Like this could be something that could be in a theater or something.
So thank you, Lauren, right? Jacobson?
Yeah.
And Kevin Temmer. Look in the description for links to their website if you want to get in touch with them, give them a job or whatever. We're going to be doing a lot of these interviews with different animators from different schools. So this is more of an insight into what it's like to go to Ringling from a student who just graduated and whose films we love, and I know you guys love as well.
Well, just thank you for having me, and I thank you for showcasing my film, and I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.